この私に立ち向かう気か。今回の実験も成功のようだ。
That's what he said about an African American conservative nominee by President Bush who had served 5 years on the California Supreme Court. We're not going to live in America like that any longer. To my Democratic colleagues, if you're a person of color, a woman, supported by liberals is pretty easy sailing. But Miguel Estrada, Janice Rogers Brown, Amy Coney Barrett, on and on and on, your life gets turned upside down. You had nothing to do with that. I just make this observation that when you come up to me and talk about how moving the exchange was, I agree. I just want to remind you there was somebody else of color, a woman of color, that was picked for the D.C. Circuit, one of the highest courts in the land, that did not meet the same fate. And those days should be over. Do you believe in legal?
Thank you, Senator. Under our laws, you're a citizen of the United States in order to vote.
So the answer would be no.
It's not consistent with our laws, so the answer is no.
Then how do they do that?
Senator, I'm not aware of this.
All right, well, that's a good answer. The answer is no. Can an unborn child feel pain for 20 weeks in the birthing process?
Senator, I don't know.
Are you aware of the fact that anesthesia is provided to the unborn child at that time period? There's no way to save the baby's life because they can, in fact, feel pain. Are you aware of that?
I am not aware.
Well, that may come before you one day, so it's the only thing that I ask you to do. You said, apply the law and the facts and call them as you see them. Is that right?
That is correct, Senator.
Okay, and you look at the statute as the way it's written, and you try to apply it in its plain meaning. Is that correct?
That is correct, Senator.
Have you heard of a case called Make the Road versus McAleen?
Make the Road New York? Yes.
Yeah, okay. Make the Road in New York, who are they?
Make the Road New York is a nonprofit that represents various individuals in the sort of immigration law field.
They're a nonprofit advocacy group for immigration issues. Did you know they received large donations from the Arabella Network, from George Soros's Open Society Foundation Network?
No.
Okay. Well, they did. Now, in that case, what was the issue?
The issue in that case was a challenge to a change in administration policy concerning expedited release, which is a policy that Congress enacted in order to expedite certain ordinarily before expedited removal.
Asylum cases do not fall in this category, right?
Well,
trust me on that, because the statute says it does.
If a person who could otherwise be subject to expedited removal has a criminal torture in their country, they can be.
Can they make that right?
To qualify for regular removal rather than expedited removal.
So expedited removal is a creature of Congress. And if you've been here 2 years or less, the statute would allow to have expedited removal, avoiding a lot of the hurdles that 2 years away. Even Bush years, they did not look at it in terms of applying it to everybody. Some people coming by air got expedited removal, others didn't. The Trump administration decided to use the authority given to it by Congress to remove all eligible cases 2 years or less under the expedited removal statute. Is that a fair summary?
Well, Senator, I would say it differently.
Well, say it differently.
All right. The statute that you put up indicates that Congress is giving the department, the ability to determine what category of aliens.
If he's 2 years or less.
Yeah, but importantly, the authority was not Congress saying 2 years or less. What Congress said is you, agency, have the authority to determine what category of persons who have been here between 24 months. No, but what I'm trying to explain is that the authority given to the agency was to determine what length of time.
Discretion to make that.
What length of time? It was not the authority to report everyone who's been here for 24 months. It was the authority to determine what length of time a person has to be here in order to be subjected to expedited removal.
Here's what the statute says. The Attorney General, which is actually the DHS Secretary, may apply clauses 1 and 2 of this subparagraph to any and all aliens as designated by the Secretary of DHS. So and unreviewable discretion of the Attorney General and may be modified at any time. Now, I've been in this business for quite a while. What the Trump administration did was to use the discretion given to it by statute in a way different than prior administrations. This advocacy group, the Arabella-supported advocacy group, tried to strike it down. You rule for them. Here's what the DC said. There could hardly be a more definitive congressional intent to leave the decision about the scope of executive removal within statutory bounds to the Secretary's independent judgment. By its exceptional terms. Such designation shall be in the sole and unreviewable discretion of the Attorney General and may be modified at any time. To those of us in the law writing business, I don't know how you could tell a judge more clearly that the administration, the agency in question, has discretion to do certain things within the statute. So this is an example to me, and you may not agree, where the plain language of the statute was completely wiped out by you. You reached a conclusion because you disagree with the Trump administration, and the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals said, as I quoted just a minute ago, there could hardly be a more definitive expression of congressional intent to leave the decision about the scope of expedited removal within statutory bounds to the Secretary's independent judgment. That, to me, is Exhibit A of activism. Let's go back to the child pornography cases.
Senator, would you allow me to...
Yes,
The statute and the circumstances that you reference are accurate insofar as that is what the statute says. It's not all of it. It doesn't describe the designation process. And it doesn't address the fact that Congress has another statute that is presumptively applied in agency cases to tell agencies how to exercise discretion. There's also DC Circuit case law that says that in addition to having that procedural status presumptive, even very clear designations of authority to an agency may still be subject to directions regarding how to exercise discretion.
That argument fell on deaf ears.
Understood.
Other things I want to talk about, you've given an explanation, but it didn't work. The D.C. Circuit Court said there could hardly be a more definitive expression of congressional intent. This is good as it gets. There's no way around it. So discretion lies in the agency.
あまり無理するなよ
So you're not convincing me. Something other than activism, and we can talk about it all day long, but I agree with the DC court. Exhibit A of a judge ignoring limitations to get a result they want. Child pornography. I have no doubt that you find child pornography disgusting as the rest of America. You're a mother. You seem to be a very nice person. Are you aware of how many images are out there on the internet involving children and sexually compromising situations?
億円超
Senator, I'm not aware of
They are disgusting, right? Well, let me tell you the numbers. In 2021, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 29 reports of parent-child sexual exploitation containing 25 million images, videos, and other files. That's in 2021.
これで寝てい
It's up.
野望に
In
近づい
2019,
た
it's less. So there's an epidemic of this on the internet. That if you go out on the internet, there are millions of pictures of kids being abused. When it comes to sentencing child pornography possession cases, do you routinely discount the fact that a computer was used?
Thank you, Senator, for allowing me to address this concern. The guidelines related to child pornography were drafted at a time in which a computer was not used for the majority, if not almost all, of these kinds of horrible crimes. The guidelines have enhancements in them.
In two areas that you said you disagree. What are those two areas?
At the time that the guidelines were drafted, it was an aggravating factor, a substantial aggravating factor, to use a computer in order to distribute and disseminate the images because the ordinary crime was not committed by computer. So the
Would you now
baseline-
agree with me that computers are sort of the venue of choice for child pornographer people?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so here's my point. If you believe, as I do, the computer has created a bigger demand, there are more photos out there because of the internet, more websites exposing this garbage. Wouldn't you want to deter people from going down that road?
Senator, this crime is among the most difficult.
No, answer my question. Would you want to deter people from going down the road of using the computer that allows these people to have access to millions of photos because of the technology? I want those people deterred. So if you're listening to my voice today and you're on a computer looking at child pornography and you get caught, I hope your sentence is enhanced because the computer and the internet is feeding the beast here. That all these images out there are going to be more over time because people use computers. Now, didn't you also say that the number of images should not be considered as a sentence enhancer?
Senator, with respect to the computer, one of the most effective deterrents is one that I imposed in every case and that judges across the country impose in every case, which is substantial supervision. any of these
Wait,
defendants.
Judge. You think it is a bigger deterrent to take somebody who's on a computer looking at sexual images of children in the most disgusting way is to supervise their computer habits versus putting them in jail?
No, Senator, I didn't say
That's
versus.
exactly what you said. I think the best way to deter people from getting on a computer and viewing thousands, hundreds, over time, maybe millions, the population as a whole, of children being exploited and abused every time somebody clicks on is to put their ass in jail, not supervise their computer usage.
Senator, I wasn't talking about versus.
You just said you thought it was a deterrent to supervise them. I don't think it's a deterrent. I think the deterrent is putting them in jail. Does sentencing have a deterrent component?
Senator, would you let her respond?
Yes. Does sentencing have a deterrent component?
Yes, Senator, deterrence is one of the purposes of punishment, and Congress has directed courts to consider various
私の実験に志願してくれるのか。
One of them,
役立ち
as
そ
you
うだな。
said, is incarceration. Another, as I tried to mention, was substantial
役立ち
periods
そう
of
だな。
supervision once the
So
person.
if I could may ask you, in your view, it's more of a deterrent to have somebody
貴重な研
substantially
究資料だ
supervised
な。
in terms of their computer use who's looking at child pornography than it is to put them in jail.
Senator, I'm not saying it's
役立ちそうだな。
Exactly what you're saying.
What I'd like to point out is that if we're going to, let me say it this way. Congress has authorized courts to use a number of different means to achieve the purposes of punishment.
And one of them
私の
is
実験に志願してくれる貴重な研究資料だな。
The enhancement with respect to using a computer relates to the penalty in terms of incarceration.
And you would choose not to apply that in these cases. You've said that. I'll read you the quote, but you've decided not to apply the use of a computer as an enhancement. You've also said you're not going to hold the number of images that the person has looked at as a sentencing enhancement factor. Is that true?
No, Senator, it's not the number of images that the person has looked at because we don't have that
私の実験に志願してくれるそうだな。
the number of images that they've either received or distributed
Well,
that are
whether we don't know if they looked at them, but you're not going to hold it against them that they received 10,000 images versus 100.
that's not what I've said, Senator.
Well, here's what you said. I've decided to apply my general policy disagreement with respect to those those enhancements, at least that is the computers and the number of images. Folks, what she is saying, the reason she's always below the recommendation, I think, is because it's crap. So when you troll on the internet and you pull down thousands of images of children from the internet, I want you to stop that. I want people to go to jail who do that because you're feeding the beast. We have a bill here, the Earn It Act, that would allow the victims who are on the internet over and over again to sue. The media companies that provide these images. We have a fundamental differences of how you deter crime. I think the best way you deter crime when it comes to child pornography is you lower the boom on anybody who goes onto the internet and pulls out these images for their pleasure.
Senator, every person in all of these charts and documents I sent to jail because I know how serious this crime is. Every person, I discussed the harm of these terrible, terrible images to the victims who are portrayed in them. I talked about what this crime does to the children who are being abused in these photos, and on the other side of their terms of imprisonment, I ensured that they were facing lengthy periods of supervision and restrictions on their computer use so they could not do this sort of thing again. That's what Congress has required of judges, and that's what I did in every case.
You always were under the recommendation of the prosecutor, many times the parole people. And to be honest with you, Judge, a 32-year-old man who sent an image of his own 10-year-old daughter, you substantially reduced the not only the guidelines, but the recommendation. And all I can say is that your view of how to deter child pornography is not my view. I think you're doing it wrong, and every judge who does what you're doing is making it easier for the